Hello? Yeah? Oh, there we go. I can hear myself. Woo!
Hooray!
Alrighty. Cool. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. It's great to see so many faces. So I'm just here as the interviewer, as always. I'm just trying to find some cool people to show some cool things. And I found one of the coolest people I know, Zander, to show some very cool stuff from the Cozy Caravans. And Zander's been doing some really, really awesome work in the FMOD project. So I just wanted to kind of show some of the really interesting stuff that he's done. So we sat down and we had a really good session where Zander just talked me through a bunch of stuff. It was supposed to be a 15-minute talk. We ended up talking for about 2 hours and 40 minutes. It was great.
We got a little off topic.
Yeah, but it was fun topics. So one of the things that really struck me about this project was Zander's approach to be able to kind of kit bash a lot of stuff out of these sounds. You had these like really individual sounds and individual assets that he would reuse across the project in a really interesting way to kind of both prototype but also find these sounds as he was developing. So I think we can kind of just get stuck straight into it. As we go, we've got the Slido app here. I'm trying to monitor it while I'm also checking notes and running the interview. But if you've got questions, feel free to send them through and I'll try and check those. But for now, I think, yeah, let's just gotta get stuck into these kind of assets. Like I said, the first thing that really struck me was the way that you kit bashed a lot of this stuff. I know the footstep sounds had some really interesting stuff. So,
So I'll just let up the project. So this is Cozy Caravan. I will need a bit more volume, I think. Yeah. So here's some walking around. So this is a cozy game by Five Live Studios up in Brizzy. We won an award for the sound design last year at the AGDAs. Very exciting. Thank you. My first award. I'm chuffed. So the footsteps in this game are fairly quiet in comparison to the music that I forgot to turn off. But there should be. Oh, 1 second. We've just finished updating the in-game audio settings. I can use the in-game menu. There we go. One of my favorite things about doing audio settings is adding in a loop of sample sounds for when you're changing your sound effects volume. All right, we'll turn the music off for now, but we do need to come back to music, actually. All right, cool. Great. Sorry for that diversion. All right. So the footsteps in this, we're doing fairly simple, sort of like just poking at the ground right in front of the character's feet and checking. At first it was a simple check of like what kind of type of ground was on like the splat map. Then it turned out we needed to have like more types of ground than there were things, and there were like sand is just tinted dirt. Don't tell anyone. So we've had to do a few more sophisticated checks to make it all work now. But so it's not like really in depth, but generally. Generally grassy when you're on grass, stony when you're on stone, etc. So the actual, if we look at the actual assets we got here, so for footsteps, do the locomotion, there we are. So what actually happens is for each character in the game, they have this persistent event that is running all the time when they're alive and around and doing stuff, which is just silent. And then we'll set a parameter to left foot or right foot, which is curiously making no sound. That's very interesting. That might be because of the HDMI thing. Let me just do this thing that I thought was fine before. It should be headphones. Well, that's interesting. Hey, there we go. So, so we click left, we get left. Right, we put right. Accidentally drag, we get that. There's a little command instrument down here that whenever it gets set to left, it tells, okay, go set it to off again. And this just means that if there are 2 left steps in a row, then we can do 2 left steps, because otherwise it would just stay on left. Anyway, point is, this is always running, and then we just sort of like trigger by sending a parameter change to do that. And we were talking about kit bashing.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry. So there's a couple of layers in here. These are mostly sort of have parameter-driven. What's the word is escaping me? But deciding whether they play or not.
Automation.
Not quite.
Trigger conditions.
Trigger conditions. Thank you. Yeah. So depending on the surface type, we will have different layers playing or not. There's a bit of grass, mud, water, shallow water anyway, stone, and then wood. Sand is a case where we were going to do some recordings for sand, and we've kind of short on time at the time, and I just thought, as a placeholder, I'm just going to take our grass sounds, and I'll just pitch them down slightly, and we'll just add a bit of a bandpass filter here, and a bit of distortion, and it ended up being good enough to leave in. So this is grass, and then this is sand. So there's a bunch of that kind of stuff going on around the place.
So I think just one thing to clarify as well, when we say persistent event, what that means is when the event gets played, it doesn't get automatically deactivated. So F1 has a system in it that once all the sounds that it currently has queued up have played, and it knows there's no more sounds to play, it's going to automatically stop the event as like an optimization pass. So persistent just disables that, so it's going to go play, and then as you can see, we were still playing the sounds despite nothing was happening. So just kind of a way to keep that thing alive. And that really makes it so that we can, like Zander could track this in the profiler, in the game, to be able to say, right, the footsteps event's live, what's the footsteps doing, instead of it spawning new instances each time. Just keeps things a little bit more neat.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to track, like, how many, if, for example, we'd had our, instances, like max instances settings and things set up in a certain way, we wanted to make sure that sounds weren't being triggered when they shouldn't be, because they're out of range and that kind of stuff, whether stuff's being properly virtualized. It's a little bit confusing if I'm looking at just a whole lot of individual footstep sounds spawning in the profiler, but with these, there's just one per character, and I can tell how many characters are currently active, is that how many there should be, that kind of thing.
Yeah, one of the things that I really appreciated with Zander's project is how much work he's put into optimization, which we will be going into in a bit. But there's a lot of really good, clean workflows that just makes reviewing the project like so much easier than when you just look at this massive stack of instances. Speaking of, one of the other events that I really enjoyed your implementation for was the waterfall. He did this really interesting technique that I think was very cool.
Oh, yes, so the water sources in the game, so there's oops, I'll just run up here. So for all the water sources in the game, a lot of them are sort of based off the same samples and things, but also there are quite a lot of them. And really, there's a lot of issues with like waterfalls being right next to each other, or two chunks of a stream sort of, meeting. We've got a spline that'll sort of, the sound will follow along the spline of a stream, but if it forks or if some other thing happens, we need a second instance of that. We want to make sure that the two instances of the same sound or the same type of sound are not having sort of adverse phase interactions, which is often what happens if you attempt to play the same sound at the same time in two locations, because when you just try and like play a sound in like, I don't know, Unity's update function or something, right? It's not actually trying to synchronize those down to the millisecond. It's just doing it whenever it gets up to it in the middle of that frame, and a frame's going to be about 15 milliseconds long if we're running at 60 FPS. So there's actually quite a lot of variance in when these things can be triggered. We don't want them to be exactly the same. We want it to sound like separate instances. So what I'm actually trying to do, as we get around to it, is to have this waterfall here. That's quite loud. The waterfall, if I had two waterfalls next to each other that are trying to play the same thing at the same time, then they'd have phasing interactions. It wouldn't be great because of sort of a flanger effect. What we want to do then is we want to have a randomized sort of start offset to each of these waterfall instances. So when they play, it may play from the beginning or may play from partway through or near the end. What I dislike about FMOD's implementation of this is that if we were to just set a random parameter here on the start offset and say, cool, randomly pick a number, I can expand that so that it is randomly somewhere in 100%. But there is absolutely no failsafe against one of them being picked as 1% and the next is 2%. And then you're going to get phase interactions because they're still too close together. So what I've done here is actually, I've got the same asset in this. I've made this a multi-instrument instead of a single one. And I've got the same asset referenced multiple times, each one with their own start offset, which I've keyed in as 10% differences, right? And then I've got a sequential global playlist. So when you start one instance of this, it'll take the first option in the list. When you start the next one, it'll take the second, and so on. And so as we instantiate all of our water features sort of concentrically outwards from, anyway, the point is they're sequential. So if any two are next to each other, they're not going to pick the same thing. And so you've got sort of 10 different starting points that it will choose from, and the ones that are next to each other are not going to be picking the exact one of those 10.
See, it's not just me. So I guess just a quick thing to clarify as well with multi-instruments. You can see the sequential global mode down there. So what that is one of our playlist modes, just so everybody's kind of following along. Multi-instruments by default are set to shuffle, and that will random. Anyway, it'll randomly pick one of the sounds inside the multi-instrument, so you can get lots of variations, which is really useful, but it also means that they're completely random. As Zander said, there's a distinct likelihood that if two of them play at once, then we're going to get the same sound twice, right? So we've got other modes that are called sequential, and what that means is we're going through the list. So in FMOD 2.3, we've got a sequential local scope, sequential instance scope, and sequential global scope. Those are just different ways that you reset your progression through that playlist. It gets a little bit kind of waffly, but basically, local scope is while that instance is live, it's the FMOD instance is what's remembering how far you are through the playlist. The event. And then the instance is per instance, and then global is per system. So basically, if you want to reset a global progression through, you have to reset the entire FMOD system, which means you don't have to worry about all the different instance management. Anyway, technical waffling. Zander's really smartly used sequential global because the FMOD system is remembering how far. So you play one, it's going to play the first one. The next event that's going to play is now going to play the second instance, which means it's going to play the same sound but guaranteed to be 20% instead of 10%.
Yeah.
It's very smart.
And because these are all getting sort of switched on and then virtualized at the same time, there is going to be, as I said, that like slight delay you'll get when you try and play two things at the same time. But it's always going to be way less than that 10% sort of margin. So it's not going to like get it close up to another one that's next to it.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's a really smart way to do things. And I'm kind of annoyed I didn't think of doing it first. But anyway.
I just hate leaving things to chance because every time I look at one of these things and I go, oh, look, there's like a 1% chance that this will happen. And we go, how many people are going to play this game? You know, maybe. If it's 10,000 people playing the game and there's like 45 rivers, 45 waterfalls or something in the game, then, people are going to run into this low chance thing. So really, try to avoid stuff that's just unlikely and try to be like, no, system, make it not happen.
That's why he's an award-winning sound designer, and I'm now product manager and not a sound designer. So another thing was Zander's use of filtering in this project that's really across, and we're going to sit on this for a while, and trust me when I say it's worth it. But first one is some of the ambiences and the filtering stuff you were doing. Can you take us through some of those, because they are very, very cool.
Certainly. Let's look at the ambiences thing here. So a lot of this, we've got a couple layers here where we've got generally bits of bird song or other sort of hustle and bustle and things which we associate with different sort of areas. And then most of them have this wind calm referenced event here, which will sometimes have different volumes, different sort of settings set to it. But essentially, it is always this sort of one thing. Which is not terribly exciting, You know, I mean, I love pink noise as much as the next person, but what I do is a whole bunch of modulating and of various things. So we'll end up with, if I can find where that is. I can't find where that is actually. Is that not in here? It's not on that. I always with these ones. Okay. Well, I'm going to skip over that. But I will come back to how that then gets used in a bunch of places. So like this pink noise loop, right, is absolutely invaluable to me. I love subtractive synthesis, and I can get by with it most of the time. Like a lot of stuff you can just do with that. So like I've got a list. I think everything in green here is using this same noise loop to do different things. So this is sort of the wind up before you throw a stone, which is obviously not a diegetic sound, but we needed something, and that's just performing. We're doing I think that's a. So it's band passed already, and then we have a. Is it pitch? Why? There it is. There we go. So we've got an envelope on the crossovers of these. There we go. So the band pass, it's going. We've got. Oh yeah, when a customer during the waiter sequence drinks a drink, we start with a little. And just that sound of a drink being dragged across the table, picked up. That you can do with white noise. And we do that with, once again, there's just a moving bandpass filter, really. It's amazing how much, to me, that sounds like a glass on a countertop. Yeah, who knows? Everything's just noise. I think also the cast wind-up here is the same thing as the throw wind-up, and then the fishing cast also has this noise loop in it. Do we want to use that as a segue?
Yeah, so it's an excellent segue. When Zander showed me this event, I kind of had to do a double take on what he was doing because, again, he's using some really interesting filtering to avoid pitch shifting artifacts. So he's doing this in a really smart way, so we don't get that really weird like pitch warping when you actually dynamically pitch shift stuff. But then there's a bunch of other stuff in this event that I just think is really cool. So honestly, just take the reins and show them this thing because it's cool. Do it.
Okay, so FMOD has a few shortcomings that I've found some all right workarounds for. So one of them is pitch shifting generally is a concern to me because it's one of those things that sounds just so incredibly video gamey. And when you're making something that's meant to sound kind of organic, it really just sort of, I think, breaks that illusion, right? So one of the things, which we'll get to ways of dealing with that in a later bit, but one of the issues with this is zippering, which is basically when you try and draw a nice smooth automation curve, these nice curves here, very nice curves. When you do this, that's not what actually happens. So FMOD updates about every 40 milliseconds. It gets new inputs from parameters from the game engine and things, and it applies all the new changes to parameters to all the various effects and plugins and things. So if you're doing a pitch shift and you're trying to go from negative 24 semitones up to positive 24 semitones, instead of hearing a smooth, you'll hear that you hear the frequency as it sort of jumps because at each update it goes to the next frequency on that line, right? It's sort of steppered. So to really avoid that, and also to avoid the sort of just the tonal quality you get of that's a sound that's being pitch shifted. It's really, it just absolutely stands out to me. So this is what I did for the fishing reel. Here is my asset of a fishing reel. There you go. It is. It doesn't say how many samples long. Not many. There you go. It's 49.49. It's not long. It goes like that. So yes, so that's just a single oscillation of a sawtooth, right? It's just a pop. I'm sorry about the speakers, that was loud. So if I take a pop and I stick another bandpass on it, and then I stick another bandpass on it, and I set those both to the highest Q possible, you get this. Except you won't hear anything right now. Yeah. So we turn a pop into more of a click, and then we can automate the rate of change of that, and then we can sort of cast our fishing rod. Yeah.
So good. Yes. 100% yes. There's a reason he won this award.
Yeah.
So another part of the filtering that I found really interesting was the wheels for the Caravans. There was some really interesting stuff that you're doing there to avoid like pitch shifting, but also create a bunch of variations.
Yes, actually, yes. Let's have a look at that. So in this game, you spend a lot of time driving this Caravan around. Maybe we'll do it. Come on, Bubba, we're off. There you go. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a very loud beat. Oh. Okay. This, yeah. My laptop chugs a bit with the project. Sorry. Okay, can we boost? There we go. So a little bit hard to hear in this setting, but the wheels, here we are, basically we've got a bunch of different sort of, surface sounds. So we've got, some dirt, grass, shallow water, stone, wood, and deep water.
For anybody not familiar, those are magnet regions as well. So they just mean whenever the transition condition of those regions are true, it's going to pull the playback position to within that region. And I think you had offset set to relative as well to maintain, I think.
No, because it's not actually that important. And I put
never
these. No, well,
see how it is.
I'm running these async, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. In fact, they don't even really need to be. Yeah, as long as they are. Never mind. But yeah, so we magnet the thing over to here, and then this just sort of catches it. I could have just let it loop. I don't know why I didn't do that. Oh, I know why I didn't do that. It's because of the transition regions. I didn't want the fade to overlap in the looping situation.
That one I can explain in the FMOD room if you want to come see afterwards. It's a bit of a longer-winded one that is not important right now because this is cooler.
So with especially with the speed changes, I really didn't want that sort of like effect you get when you're just speeding up or slowing down a sound, like for the wheels sort of rolling on surfaces, right? So if we go back and look at like, oh no, this one doesn't have it. It has to be in the parent one. Right, so we're rolling. This is going to be loud again, I think. So I'm turning up the Caravan speed here. And so that's for dirt. So that's primarily, really we're getting mainly what we sort of, there we go, Caravan speed. We can look at this page here, and it'll show us automations on these, here we go, on surfaces, and probably on master as well, yes. So volume, obviously, we heard that. We've got volume then of like the surface component of this also being automated by this. Then the pitch is rolling down by 1 octave as you get down to the slowest. But it doesn't quite sound like that because what I'm also doing is I've got probably this EQ here. There we go. Where I'm rolling off the low frequencies, the lower the speed gets. So the lower the speed gets, the lower the pitch gets. The lower the pitch gets, the more I roll off the low frequencies. And while this doesn't, perhaps on the surface, make a whole lot of sense, one of the things I realize, and I don't have a physics degree or anything, but my very cursory understanding of acoustics is that when you have a sound that is loud and deep, it requires more energy to be as loud as a higher pitched sound, right? So if you take a sound that is at one frequency and you pitch shift it down with making no other changes to the intensity of it, it appears to become more powerful, right? It may not actually get like louder, but your like psychological perception of the thing that is causing this sound is it is gaining in power because you need that greater power to create that lower bassy movement, right? So if you want to have something that's sounding like it's going down in power, right, which is usually the case for engines or other sorts of things that are sort of, I'm pitching down as it goes slower, we need to also roll off those low frequencies. So we're moving our energy content from the upper and mid frequencies down into the lower frequencies, and then we're also pushing those down. So we get the sense of, yeah, we're losing the high frequency energy, it's going down, it's moving down into lower frequencies, but it's also losing energy because we're not then having this weird sensation of lower pitch, therefore bigger, more intense.
You've also got the added benefit of when you're pitching down a sound, the spectral centroid, or basically the dynamic or the dominant frequency at any given point, is also getting pulled lower. So basically, you're pitch shifting the whole sound down, but if you imagine it as like this is where all the meat of the sound is, and this is lower, this is higher, as you pitch it down, the whole sound is kind of sliding downwards as well. So when you're filtering like that, you're actually removing some of those dominant frequencies that you're noticing, which means you're noticing less of the pitch effect kicking in as well. So
Absolutely,
it's an added benefit of really smart, intense intensity modulation. And also, I just want to point out the fact Zander says he doesn't have a physics degree, yet this man built his own ultrasonic microphone. So, yeah, no.
My motto is never underestimate a...
Hyperfixation?
Well, yes. I was going to say a sufficiently motivated fool, but that will do. That'll do just fine. The other thing I did in this is for the wood bridge. You'll hear we've got just the wood rattles. Because once again, I wanted the sound of you going over the individual timbers of the bridge, but if you pitch shift it, obviously it sounds like the bridge is getting bigger and smaller, which is weird. So yeah, we've chopped that up into all individual impacts, and then I'm using, actually we'll go in, we'll have a look at this, a scatterer instrument, actually, to trigger these. And I'm scattering it over a range of nothing. And what we're doing here is just modulating the spawn rate, so that when we're not moving, spawn rate is 0%. As we go up, and I've got no randomness in like the durations or distances and any of that kind of stuff. So it does have this sort of regularity, which matches very much the curve of your movement speed.
I would also like to just add there as well that having zero distance is actually important in this case. There's some technical reasons to why, but basically, I'm not getting into the detail of it, as you can tell from Zander's expression, why. But it is important that if you want a sound to not be spatialized in world space, for anybody that's a bit more technical, it's important that the scatterer has to be 0 to 0 range. The second you have anything more than 0 to 0, it's going to actually spatialize it in the world, which means you have to be more aware of this stuff. Again, I can explain this more in the FMOD room. It's a bit of a deep dive, but if you don't want it to be in world units, just set it to 0, 0, and it'll work mostly.
Now, of course, inversely to that, this sound is spatialized in the real world, but essentially a scatterer has like its own spatializer within it. So if you set it to 0, we're basically kind of not using that spatialization because this is a nested event inside of this thing, which is the Caravan. The Caravan has its own, over here, spatializer, right? So I don't want to be double spatialized. You get all sorts of wacky behavior and annoying things to track down if that happens. So yeah, so everything's sort of flat 2D until it gets into the master channel on this, and that's where it's all spatialized together to sort of tighten to being the one thing with the one position.
So, what are we doing? So, I lost my notes. My
Sorry,
laptop
I
rested in
skipped
the
you
middle.
around, I think.
That's okay. So one of the things that I've really enjoyed seeing with this project as well was how Zander kind of created these scalable workflows. So I was, lucky to talk to Zander early on during
Sorry,
this.
there's one more pitching thing, can I?
Yes, sure.
Sorry.
Pitch away.
Sorry.
Is it an
You're on a
elevator
roll
pitch?
as well. It was really good. So this is...
This is rare.
Yeah.
Wait, that was a pun from the Caravan thing. That was good.
There's a what now?
It was a pun for the Caravan wheels. I was on
Yeah.
a roll.
Alright. Let's see if I can do this without it going crazy. Whoa, that's not good. No, wrong one. Whoa. Sorry, this is very hacky. You're not right, player name. You're not wrong. Yeah. So. Yeah, skipping stones. Skipping stones. I love little ploppy sounds. They're so much fun. There is stones. Skip. There it is. Boom. So once again, I hate the obvious pitch shift phenomenon. One of the things that is most obvious is in transients. Transients are, that tiny short bit at the start of the sound, and it contains so much information. There is like, it is ridiculous, right? Because they're only a few milliseconds long, and yet we can ascertain a whole lot of complex information about a sound based purely on just the transient. And in fact, there was a guy. Oh no, I can't remember his name now. French.
Yeah, Schaefer.
Thank you. Yes?
Schaefer?
I think it
Yeah,
was.
are you talking about the bell experiment?
I am. Thank you. Yes. Pierre
Like
Schaefer.
you.
I don't know anything
I like
about
you.
the software, so this is like fucking cool.
I like you a lot.
Thank you very much. Yes, Pierre Schaefer, he did these experiments. I think they're the split bell or the cut bell experiments, or the name was in French, so it doesn't translate anyway. The point is, he took the transients of a whole bunch of generally instrument sounds and just cut them on magnetic tape, stitched them onto the body and tail end of a whole bunch of different musical sounds. And then he'd play those back to people and say, what are you listening to? And you'd take the hit of a bell and then the tail of a clarinet. And you'd say, here's like a few milliseconds of bell and then like 2 seconds of clarinet. What did you hear? Either a bell or something they can't quite identify that's a weird thing cross between them, right? Because we get so much information out of that, which is how like old romplers used to work, right? You'd have tiny samples of just the transients of notes and things, and you can synthesize very simply, the sustain of a guitar note or something, a guitar string, but the actual hit of the transient is what gives it that distinctive character. So anyway, the point is, you don't want to mess with transients and mess them up. So what I've done actually on these ones is I have done that similar approach. I've split them. And so when we have the stones skipping, and I wanted to go bloop, 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 basically I'm not pitch shifting the transients at all, but I am pitch shifting the tails. And so when we hear, that's one. You don't get the sense that you're listening to something being pitch shifted because it's still the initial, that moment identifies it, makes it feel more organic, more natural, more real. Sorry, I just really wanted to say that.
It's a very cool implementation, very clean as well. I like it a lot. One of the things I was talking about was we had a lot of shared effects, or you used a lot of shared effects for this. And so Zander started talking to me about this project kind of early on in development. So I kind of got to see this project a little bit earlier and then in this sort of more finished state. And it's been really interesting seeing how it sort of evolved. And something that struck me was how much he used shared effects to kind of build these scalable workflows and pipelines where he's kind of got these individual uses and tools for things. So just for a real quick explanation, a shared effect is kind of like an effect rack in Ableton. It's just like, it can be a single effect or it can be a chain of effects. And it's just a way for you to save an effect that has a bunch of automation on it. So you can have an EQ that rolls off a certain, the high frequencies for occlusion, right? And then you save that as a shared effect. You can then use that effect on any number of events within the FMOD project. But the powerful thing is, if you make a change to any one of those instances, all of them get updated because it's shared. So it means you can have something like an occlusion shared effect, and then you go, actually, you know what? I want to tweak the frequency values of this occlusion across the whole game. You change it once, the entire game of like the 50 different assets of it will get updated.
Which is great if you're expecting that to happen.
That's why I changed the name to shared effects from effect presets.
Yeah, which is excellent work on Aaron's part, really. Doing the Lord's work over here, because that's you don't expect that, because the great thing about FMOD is that it feels like audio software. It makes a lot of sense to audio people, and it is the way you name things is really important. So yeah, presets we imagine to be like templates, but actually this is still a 2.02 project, so they're still called presets. But yeah, the presets are this shared effect thing. But it's super handy, right? Because I've got like every sound. I think every sound has it. Not every sound. Every spatialized sound has this on it. And it's just a very simple 3-band EQ. If I'd done this today, this is the thing, of course, like I'm not like showing some idealized concept of a bunch of things, but just showing you my project, is that like, oh yeah, sure, if I'd done this now, I would have done this differently. But, I would have used a multi-band EQ. But the 3Q works fine. And basically, it's just as you get far away. Oh yeah, I need to talk about built-in parameters. You can add parameters to things in FMOD. It lets you then set values in the game, and then you can use that to automate things in FMOD, right, with your sounds. FMOD also just offers a bunch of these built-in ones that it can sort of ascertain without you needing to hook up anything else game side. And one of these is distance. It will measure the distance between, actually, I think it's the distance between the sound and the listener, but only if the listener doesn't have a spiral staircase. No. Only if the listener doesn't have a attenuation object. Thank you. So I think this measures the distance between the sound and the attenuation object, which is, I won't get into that, I'm sorry. But in this case, no, I will, fine. In this game, because the camera's way up here, I didn't want sounds to be louder or softer based on how close they were to the camera, right? Because also, we're that sort of quasi, we're like a 3/4 view, right? And so then sounds that are below us, to the south, are going to be closer than sounds to the north. That all bothers me very much. So instead, actually, everything is based on the player. So we get our panning information from the camera, and we get our loudness information from the player. So the things that are near to the player are going to be louder and more important, right? So then also, when we're doing the occlusion, I want it done the same way. So everything, we get the distance, which FMOD will just automatically grab for us, which is great, because it needs to know that anyway to do attenuation. And then we can just use the distance parameter to automate this settings on the EQ, so we roll off the high frequencies the further away something gets from the camera. And because I want this to be a sort of physical model type filter, it just can be a blanket approach and stick it on every 3D spatialized object, and suddenly the world feels a bit more like it has that natural roll-off of high frequencies over distance.
The one thing I will clarify is distance actually doesn't need an attenuation object. It's literally just the position, the world position of an event to the listener. So it'll work regardless of wherever it is. The other thing that's worth noting as well that you might see is that built-in distance has two variations. There's built-in normalized and then just built-in. Built-in will let you specify any two minimum maximum values basically between 0 to 10,000, I think. Whereas normalized is going to take into account the event's min and max distance. Again, this gets a little bit complicated. If you're interested and like to know more, come chat in the FMOD room. I say that every talk a lot. So you should have it on a t-shirt. So what I've got is the animation parameter changes. You had some
that's
shared
a fun
effects.
one.
Yeah, you had some shared effects on delays to time animations that it was cool.
Sort of. Oh no, I need to clear my search. Ooh. I think we've gone. Oh no, we haven't gone through all of this. Anyway, that's fine. I can bring up a second editor window. The power of FMOD.
That's smart.
Ah. So I'll go to dialogue. We've got some voices. Maybe we'll hear them in game first. Maybe. Shall we? Whoop. Do. Go over and say hello to Barry here.
Ahoy!
Oh, come on. I want my guy to say something. Come on. Actually, I don't think he will if I don't. We're going to talk to Jill.
Ba-ba-da-ba-ga-da.
That's my wife's voice.
Ma-ba-da-ba-da.
Oh, no.
Don't worry about it.
Ma. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Ma-da-wam-ba-ga.
Yeah.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Ma. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-da-ba-yo.
Thanks, Jill. So, basically, that was a terrible example because she's stuck doing a repairing animation. Normally, you'll talk to... okay, fine. Let me... let's talk to Bubba. No, hide forever. Oh, yeah, I know what's going on here. Yeah. Okay. That's, yeah, let's see if we can just skip that. Sorry, Bubba. There we go. Yeah, sorry. We've just added a new sort of streaming system for character voices, and because I've like loaded my voice in through a debug setting, I think it hasn't actually loaded the bank for my character voice to be playing in game right now. Anyway, that's silly. I'm so sorry, Mike. So basically, for each of these characters, they've got these little animations and things they'll do, and they've got little mouth movements and stuff. And to synchronize that, I'd sort of, I'd done a bunch of the voice lines, but they all sort of start at the start of the first word in the voice line, right? But because of the way we are triggering the voices and the animations and stuff, it's sort of run by an emote system, which says play this emote and play this voice line, and sort of do that together. So I needed to build in a bunch of delays so that there would be offsets before sound was played. And I just ended up finding that it was very, very fiddly to go through and like, you can grab this and you can go trigger, behavior, give it a particular delay of a certain amount of time, et cetera, right? That you absolutely can do. But it's like pulling teeth when you've got this many voices to do and this many, things on each, it gets very big. So I realized I can add a delay effect. We give that full wet. And then we have automated. That's the wrong one. Show. Aha. We have automated here the different delay offsets for the different emotes. So in generic, it's going to be 500 milliseconds. Doing agree, nothing. For happy, it's 180, and so on. But basically, once I did this for one character voice, I just slapped that shared effect on everything, and they can all just inherit the same delay offsets across the board. And if I find that the animation's been tweaked in one of them, change it just in one spot. It's changed everywhere. Lifesaver.
Having the feedback at 0% as well will avoid it obviously repeating as delay. So he's literally just taking the signal and then using a DSP just to push it forward by a certain amount. It's a really clean workflow. And as you said, it makes it so you can just make single adjustments from a single spot instead of having to bake it into assets. I like it a lot.
Did we want to... You mentioned more the animation stuff. I want to show you... Can we just open recent so I don't have to go through my folder hierarchy on my computer in front of everyone? Yeah, we can. Hell yeah. Is it... That'd be the... I think that's the one. High score talk video. That sounds right. Okay. So, I better explain what's going on here. This is, I might say, unreleased content. Ooh.
Come on.
I've been given
Better
clearance to
than
show
that.
just this bit. So basically, there is, throughout the game, you are preparing for this big event called the Whiz Bang Fair. One of the things that happens at the fair is this band is playing, and I wrote a song for the band to play. I wrote some lyrics for them to sing and all that kind of stuff. And I had it sort of in my head from fairly early on that I really hate it when you're like watching a cartoon or something and like the drums aren't doing what the drums are doing. And I kind of pushed for, something that ended up being a big time sink for me and Mitch the animator. But I quite like the outcome. Basically, we've got a whole lot of... I might show the FMOD side first. In the other window I prepared earlier. Except it's not there, because I didn't do that. In music, whiz bang, band. Right. So, basically, there is a way to send sort of data about things like your, when the beat's falling on the metronome and all this kind of stuff from FMOD back to, say, Unity using callbacks. It's very scary. I don't like it. It involves a lot of that weird sort of like thing where you're in Unity and you're coding in C# and then like suddenly you're doing FMOD stuff and it needs to everything like feels like C++ now, and it's all it's not very nice. Anyway, the point is, I decided to just avoid that, and instead I made a buttload of global parameters which I am setting in FMOD using command instruments, and then I'm manually reading the value of all of these global parameters in Unity, and then sending this data to the animator to tell the guitarist where to put their hand and when to strum and things like that. So that's why this is quite dense here. There's for the guitar, we've got like a nested instrument, which is just the strumming pattern. There we go. But these pink ones here are just like, choose a random chord number. And this, again, frustratingly, there is another sort of FMOD workaround here. I wanted the value to be locked to a certain number of sort of fret positions. But I also didn't want it to snap between them, right? So I can set a random integer value, which I'm doing here. But that's not actually what I'm sending over to Unity. What I'm doing is I'm using that parameter to automate another parameter. So my guitar neck int is what I'm setting. And then guitar neck is automated by guitar neck int. And then it's got a seek speed so that it can lerp smoothly between the values as they change, and that's what I send over to Unity. And I'm doing that across a bunch of these things. And here's all the mouth shapes. Look, okay, you can watch it for a bit. Here we go. Thank you. As a little Easter egg, that song is in the sort of the gibberish that all the characters speak. There is another song that is, another unreleased song that is also in gibberish, and then another unreleased song that is a version in English of that song. And if you use that to reverse engineer what the words mean, you could figure out what this song is about. And I'm not going to tell you.
Damn.
So basically all these mouth shapes and stuff, we're just setting them all in here. It changes it, the singer changes their mouth shape. Obviously there's limits to it. We decided like the keys, we're just going to make sure it plays in time. You know, there's only so much we could sort of spend on this, so it's, you know, it could be a little bit better, but like I'm still pleased all the hi-hat opens happen at the right time and the kick drum, you know, yeah. So I'm pretty pleased with that. I'm not sure I'd recommend doing it, but it's great fun.
I think it turned out really, really cool. It is very, very cool implementation. One of the other things was when the player walks away from the band, it becomes spatialized, right?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to show that, but I can do the FMOD thing at least. So when you're right next to the band, this is going to be loud again. It'll play the music of the band. Except it won't here. So yeah, so the other thing I did is that like all of the band members actually they've got transceivers on. So each of these things actually has a transceiver send, which goes over here, right? This one is going to 27 for clav, and then clav over here is receiving channel 27. So each of the characters in the band has a transceiver on them receiving the sound for the instrument they're playing, so they're spatialized in the world, and so you can move around the band and hear the instruments separately. The upshot of that in this particular spot here, so this is how like the whole thing is triggered, is through this event. This is now at volume 0, right? Because I'm actually just wanting all of the transceivers to play and not the actual outputs. If you are next to the band, if you're not next to the band, there is an ambient track that will play for the rest of the fair. As you get next to the band, we want to be able to just hear the band. So basically, depending on your distance, you would be hearing full band here now. As you walk away, and like that is all like, you know, it's all in key. So when you get to the blend point, it all works together nicely and everything. But basically, it's sort of like doing an inverse regular spatialization. So we're using the distance parameter to tell it what volume to be, and instead of saying when we get near, make it loud, we're saying when we get near, make it quiet, and then when we get far away, make it loud.
Also, just for clarification, the transceiver is basically an effect that lets you send out an audio signal on a specific effect, and then what you can do is use, so the ones that Zander was showing was set to send, which is transmit, I think, and that is basically sending the signal out on that channel, and then what you can do is put another transceiver effect set to receive, set it to the same channel, and that will then receive the audio. So you can basically route audio between events and whatnot that way.
One event and another event. Actually, there's another use of that. Let's see if I can get to a wishing well quickly. I don't want to show some broken stuff here. I can swear there was a well around here somewhere. Caravan. I might be able to cheat my way there. I think I might be able to. Okay. Yes. Wishing well. Wishing well. Is it not even? I don't think it even counts. Okay. I'll try one thing just real quick, just because I do want to. Wish. Nothing. Well.
Same.
Well. Okay. Forget it. I'm not gonna bother trying to do that right now. Yeah. Sorry about that. So the wishing well has a similar thing happening, right? So we've got like this is I think weirdly at the heart of what, like, if I can get philosophical for a moment, what I want like my company to do. I don't think I've said this actually. I run Supertonic. We did the sound for this game. Yes. So the one of the things we want is to delight people, right? And I feel that one of the things, wishing well, here we go, is something really stuck out to me, like when playing, say, Untitled Goose Game, right? Was there's like a drain pipe you can come up to, you can stick your head into it and honk, and you hear a honk inside a drain pipe. And they didn't have to do that. There's no purpose. There's no mechanical reason for doing that, except that player curiosity makes you go, I wonder. And then when you're rewarded with unreasonable detail, it just gives me the warm and fuzzies. And so I really wanted, when you go to the wishing well, you toss your coin in. I really wanted, well, basically, if you've already wished today, you can't have another wish, right? You can just stand there spamming the wishing well, right? So instead, if you try to interact with the well, the player leans in and calls hoyo into the wishing well, and it echoes back up at you. And this is actually not that easy of a thing to have happen, because the player can choose from any one of 9 voices. So how do we sort of figure out, and also there are multiple variants sometimes to the greeting sound, right? So it might play a different clip. So we can't just sort of like play an event in the well. So what I do is I've got a transceiver in the wishing well, which is receiving not from an event, but actually from the mixer. Speech, all the dialogue goes through a mixer group, which has a transceiver on it, and this gets sent to the wishing well whenever the wishing well is active. I had to put a blank event in here that just keeps the door open, essentially, because otherwise FMOD's like, nothing's happening here. Let's save time and get rid of that. I didn't want to make it persistent because I do actually want this to end. But yes, that's just another way of just holding the door open long enough. So unfortunately, if I play this, nothing happens. But I believe I can, through the power of having 2 things open, I think I can...
Another tab.
Oh, a tab. Wow. I always forget that's possible. Right. Yes, we want dialogue. I'll grab my hello. Why not?
Hello.
All right. Now if we'll turn on the echo.
Oh, hello.
So yeah, so that's a lot of fun. So then whichever character you pick, we can have Lucy. Let's grab Lucy. We can have this happen.
Hiya.
Oh, and then they'll do a little chuckle as well. I've set that up. How have I set that up to work? Because all the dialogue in this game, so there's like a giggle emote. Right. But we don't actually really sort of want the end of that. I think I've set it up. How did I do this? How is this possible? Wow, I don't remember how that's... No. It escapes me. I think I've somewhere else, somewhere off in a distant land, I've done something... oh no, I think it does just trigger the chuckle emote. So you do your little call into the well, it echoes back, and they go, hoo, hoo, hoo. Which is a lot of fun and completely unnecessary. But that's what I love about this. I mean, aren't games like kind of completely unnecessary in the first place? So getting like further into that really, yeah, it's a good thing.
100%. I'm on board. We have a solid 40 seconds left, so I don't think we're going to get through the last little bit. But I've got a couple of questions, but I think we're happy to field any questions kind of maybe after the talk, because we're about to run out of time. But yeah, I just want to thank Zander for taking me through this project and being up for showing you guys, because honestly, this is such a cool project. And thank you all for coming. Really appreciate everyone's kind of continued attendance of my crazy talks and interviews.
Yes. Thank you all, and thank you, Aaron, for taking us on this journey.
Yeah.
And thank you for renaming presets to shared effects.